like what's happening throughout the Midwest.
Action News, Delaware Valley's leading news program, with Cecily Tynan, Rick Williams, and Monica Malpass.
Good afternoon. In the news, police search for clues in the murder of a woman at a Montgomery County dance studio.
A trail of tornadoes leaves a path of destruction and death in Florida. Cecily has the outlook for us as that storm heads north. And a landmark day for New Jersey's version of Megan's Law regarding sex offenders.
But the big story on Action News this noon is the White House reaction to the United Nations claim of a solution to the standoff with Iraq. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan signed a deal this morning with Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz. It reportedly will allow UN inspectors into Iraq's presidential palaces, but the White House is not yet saying the confrontation is over. Let's get the latest now from Andrea McCarran in Washington. Andrea.
Good afternoon. White House officials are skeptical today. Even if the UN Security Council signs off on this deal, there is still some doubt that Saddam Hussein will ever live up to it.
Governors, let me welcome.
Speaking before the nation's governors this morning, President Clinton offered no comment on the agreement, but said he'd already had a long talk with British Prime Minister Tony Blair and would be speaking to more allies later in the day. In Baghdad, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan expressed confidence in the deal he struck with Saddam Hussein after intensive meetings over the weekend.
Let me say that the agreement that I have reached with the government of Iraq, I consider balanced, and I consider that it is in conformity with Security Council resolutions.
Iraqi officials praised Annan and denied the agreement was in reaction to the growing military threat in the Gulf.
It was diplomacy, wise, balanced, United Nations will diplomacy that enabled us to reach this agreement, not the saber-rattling policy.
Although details of the deal will not be released until Annan presents it to the UN Security Council tomorrow afternoon, officials say it opens up presidential sites for inspection and does not involve a time limit, elements that were sticking points for the United States. In Baghdad, Iraqis were declaring victory, while governments around the world reacted with cautious optimism and relief.
Regardless of what the UN Security Council does, the United States is still prepared to launch airstrikes if this agreement is deemed unacceptable. Reporting live from Washington, I'm Andrea McCarran. Now back to you.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Lawmakers are taking a wait-and-see approach to the deal worked out by the UN Secretary General. Congressman Kurt Weldon of Delaware County is among lawmakers who remains cautious until he sees the details. He talked to reporter Matt O'Donnell.
That we need, which is a full, uncontrolled access to all of these many headquarters and these palaces that Saddam claims are off limits.
And that sentiment is shared by other local lawmakers. Pennsylvania Senator Arlen Specter was quoted this morning saying even if the deal with Iraq is solid, the U.S. should step up efforts to oust Saddam Hussein. That is the very latest on the crisis with Iraq. Of course, stay tuned to Action News for any new developments. And later today on Action News, reporter Vernon Odom will report live from Washington, where he will get more reaction from local lawmakers.
Turning to other news this noon, Florida residents are trying to deal with the aftermath of powerful tornadoes that swept through the state overnight, leaving a path of death and destruction. Dozens are dead. The extent of the devastation can be seen from the air here in Osceola County. A very large tornado with wind speeds reaching 200 miles an hour simply obliterated a home, then ripped apart a trailer park. The twisters touched down near Daytona Beach on the Atlantic coast and roared across Florida to Tampa Bay on the Gulf Coast. The storms have killed at least 26 people and badly damaged or destroyed at least 200 homes and businesses. One woman was inside her trailer when the tornado struck.
And then it picked us up, put the trailer on its side, and in the meantime, everything was flying all over, furniture and everything out of the cupboards, the dishes and food and everything. And then all of a sudden, it just picked us back up again and set us right back down the way we were originally.
The National Weather Service blames El Nino for the vicious storms that hit Florida. And as the storm heads our way, it could mean some rough weather over the next few days. Let's get the very latest now from Cecily Tynan, standing by outside in AccuWeather. Cecily.
Well, Rick, fortunately, we won't get anything like what they had over in Florida. What essentially caused that was a cold front from the same system that's moving our way. This was the scene on Action Radar this morning, and you can see that line. That's the cold front associated with the low system, and there was very warm air ahead of it, cold air behind it. Then you add the Gulf moisture, and that's what caused the deadly combination. What we're looking at as a coastal storm that's going to be hugging the shoreline, and this is going to bring us some messy weather, but really not any dangerous weather. Action Radar showing that we're beginning to see the echoes already. Right now we have about moderate rainfall here on City Avenue, and I think we missed our chance of seeing any of the frozen stuff today. You can see how the snow is well west, but we could be getting a little bit tomorrow. And if we zoom in, you can see where the heavier rain is, and that's at the Jersey Shore. They've been getting several hours of moderate to heavy rain. It's just beginning to work north now, and although we don't expect any major problems at the coast, there is a coastal flood watch in effect for the New Jersey coast from Sandy Hook to Little Egg Inlet. This is for tonight through tomorrow morning. Also, the winds will get very strong. Already winds up to about 25 miles an hour at the shore. There's a gale warning in effect for the New Jersey and Delaware shores. Also, the lower Delaware Bay with northeasterly winds sustained at 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusts near 50. It's beginning to get a little breezy here on City Line as well. And we'll talk about when the storm system is going to move out of here. Also talk about the possibility maybe tomorrow of a little bit of frozen stuff, and that's all coming up in the AccuWeather 5-day forecast. Monica?
All right, thank you, Cecily. Well, folks along the Jersey Shore are bracing for yet another blast of wet and windy weather. New Jersey correspondent Lisa Quintana's live in Atlantic City, where the rain is already falling. Lisa?
Hi, Monica. If you were down on the shore yesterday, you know that we had an awesome day. Well, today we are paying for that beautiful weather. We are getting what has now become our weekly dose of rainy and miserable weather. Keeping an umbrella over your head is a bit of a challenge in this storm. The wind gusts are expected to reach as high as 25 miles per hour. The rain has been falling at a steady rate for much of the day. What's it like out here?
Rainy, drizzly, wet, miserable. Getting that wind and storm up from the coast.
The same weather system that hit Florida is now heading to the Jersey Shore in the form of a nor'easter. But unlike the other storms we've had this winter, emergency management officials don't expect any serious flooding or beach erosion. But that's little consolation to this Atlantic City tourist.
We only come down here a couple times a year, and we'll have weather like this. It's really terrible. It's disgusting.
Dressing right may make a miserable day more bearable.
I have waterproof pants on. I have a North Face jacket, which is Gore-Tex, and it also breathes and is waterproof, and a Gore-Tex hat and waterproof mittens. So I'm totally dry and toasty warm.
Most want this rain to go away, but there are a few businessmen who want the stormy weather to stay. Is the rain really hard on business, or is rain good for business?
Good for business, because you're always running the ladies with folded umbrellas who wave you down if it's a constant, steady rain, because they don't want to get wet at all.
Well, he should have good business later this afternoon. The rain is expected to continue to fall well into this evening. Now, one reason why this storm isn't as bad as the other storms we had earlier this season is because at the brunt of the storm is hitting during the low tide. The low tide was just before 11 o'clock this morning. Reporting live on the Action Cam, I'm Lisa Quintana in Atlantic City.
All right, Lisa, thank you. Detectives are investigating a murder mystery at a Montgomery County dance studio. Action News reporter David Henry is live on the Action Cam in King of Prussia with the latest on yesterday's discovery of a woman's body. David.
Well, Rick, this is the Marquis apartment complex in King of Prussia. It's the kind of suburban apartment complex where people generally feel safe from big city crime. But that sense of security has now been shattered by the brutal murder of 66-year-old Joan DeMarco. The woman's body was removed from her dance studio late yesterday. Joan DeMarco had conducted ballroom dancing classes here for 26 years. It's one of 10 businesses on the basement level of this building. DeMarco had apparently interrupted a burglar when she went to the studio from her apartment sometime between 7 and noon yesterday morning. She was beaten to death.
The victim was discovered as a result of a search initiated by co-workers when she failed to show at her part-time job. Police went to her apartment, found that empty, and eventually the body was discovered in the dance studio.
Neighbors say DeMarco's dance studio had been burglarized before and that she feared for her own safety. There apparently have been other break-ins here, despite the security gate at the entrance and the locked building doors.
From what I understand, it's been different break-ins and different burglaries.
Time once again for another edition of WeatherScope, which is sponsored by your Allstate insurance agent. For home, auto, life, and business insurance, you're in good hands with Allstate.
This is WeatherScope.
It's a rainy, windy day in some areas of the east. You're looking at a live picture from Ocean City, Maryland, where the rain continues. Started in the pre-dawn hours and raining even at this hour. And that rain and wind is making for a damp, cold, nasty day. We'll be in the forecast for much of the Northeast. Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Smith, and welcome to WeatherScope. Coming up, we'll have the latest on the Northeast, as well as a look at some of the damage caused by powerful thunderstorms in Florida that occurred yesterday. But first, another big storm is affecting California. We'll get the latest from Bob Stokes in our forecast center.
Another Pacific punch. Thanks a lot, Dennis. And this is bringing heavy rain and the threat of mudslides to California once again. And we're going to be talking about the direction of this. It appears to be taking a more northerly track than previous storms, and it's bringing heavy rain in San Francisco and now moving into L.A., where the heaviest rain is yet to come. Joining me now is Buzz Bernard, a senior meteorologist here at the Weather Channel. And Buzz, it looks like the heavy rain already begun in San Francisco.
San Francisco and also down in Southern California to the north and west of L.A. It's right. Pretty much raining up and down the whole state of California from end to end, except for extreme Southern California.
Right. Although the heaviest yet to come later today in Southern California, but already in L.A. Let's take a look at the systems affecting what's going on there now, and we can see the surface low, Buzz, on our current map and the associated front.
The front now just approaching the California coast. Much colder air behind this system pivoting in from the Pacific, and as that happens, we'll see snow levels drop down fairly significant overnight in California.
There's a look at the low pressure area moving toward the east, and again with that Pacific front coming in, snow levels should drop to about what, 2,500 feet or so in many upper highland areas?
Probably down to around 2,000 feet in Northern California. In Southern California, we may see the snow levels drop down to around 4,000 feet. But all of the area to the west of that little line I just drew there is much colder air, and that's working its way inland.
Okay, as we take a look at the rain, you can see it just like we talked about coming down from Northern California all the way down into the south. We do have some strong southeasterly winds ahead of that front. And what do you think is going to be the rainfall total, say, for the Bay Area as well as L.A. before it's all said and done?
It looks like the last of the heaviest bands now is moving into the Bay Area over San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties here. After that band comes inland, perhaps the precipitation becoming more showery in nature. Here we get a close-up of it. So this perhaps the last of the heaviest, steadiest rain for the Bay Area.
How much rain? Perhaps maybe an inch or two in some locales. It looks like a pretty heavy rain band here, and of course heavier.
I suspect in some of the hills around the Bay Area there, we'll see totals in the 3 to 4 inch range.
Wow! And so we're talking mudslides, possibly, Buzz.
Well, we have been all winter, and I guess there's no reason this should be any different.
Right. We just need to keep people posted. And as we go down to Los Angeles, we can see the wet weather moving in, and as we were talking about, already north and west of L.A., but appears like Riverside County and Orange County not taking it on the chin quite as hard as, say, up in the Burbank area, for example.
Yeah, some of the heaviest rain now falling over Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. And in the mountains to the north and west of L.A., the San Gabriel's, the south-facing mountains in Ventura counties, perhaps up to 5 to 9 inches of rain in some of those mountains by the time this storm is all over with.
For example, the Santa Ynez Mountains.
Exactly.
Right there, perpendicular to that onshore flow. And we often have orographic lifting, heavy amounts of rain. And also, something else that's not new, the mudslides, it seems like to be occurring, and also the gale and surf advisories, and we still have those in effect as we take a look at what's going on across the West Coast. You can see the gale storm advisories in effect, as well as the heavy surf advisories. And also, just as you mentioned, Buzz, we're looking at heavy snows in the Sierra Nevada range.
Exactly. I think above the 7,000 foot level, Bob, we could see totals up in the 2 to 3 foot range by the time this storm is over with.
So we've got to be careful traveling today, in addition to the snow, the rainfall coming down along I-5. Well, thanks for joining us, Buzz Bernard, Senior Meteorologist. And if you want to join us for further information across the country or California and the East Coast, check out the Weather Channel.
On a wet day, this is what it's looking right now in Ocean City, Maryland, as the rain continues to affect that area. And if that wasn't enough, it's wind-driven rain. We're talking about winds up to 35 miles an hour. That should be the scene much of the day. Even the winds will continue to kick up through the afternoon across that area. 15 to 25 and gusty. What a nucky day. Look at the satellite perspective from that ground point to above, looking back down and showing you how, once again, fair amount of cloudiness with each system, one racking up the eastern seaboard. As the gentleman just mentioned, what's going on in the western states. Let's focus in on this storm as it's moving on up in the northeastern quadrant of the country, already spilling the wind and rain, buffeting the coastline at Ocean City, as you just saw, all the way up into around Philadelphia. Snow in the mountains much farther to the west in the higher terrain. Interstate 79 and 81 will be impacted there. Some light rain continues in eastern Iowa all the way up into western Wisconsin, around La Crosse, and even a little bit of light rain around Minneapolis. As this all continues to scoot up the eastern seaboard, snow will be in the higher elevations, rain will be on the coastal areas in our forecast for this go-around. Talk about some of the rains, substantial heavy rains right now from Hampton Roads area on up into Salisbury or Ocean City, Maryland. Dover, Delaware receiving a batch of rain, moving on through the nation's capital, Baltimore, and then spreading on back into areas of West Virginia where the higher peaks right now are picking up a little bit of light snow, and that should persist through the afternoon with some light accumulations in those areas. Closer view finding the heaviest rain right on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border right now. Some of that in the higher peaks may be mixing with a little bit of sleet as temperatures remain in the 30s and 40s here. D.C., BWI, moving down through Dulles and National. It's rain, folks, down to Richmond, and again on the coastal areas from Salisbury all the way up to Dover, and even moving in through the Philly area, the rain persists. We've had some nasty weather over the weekend. Saturday it was in the Lone Star State of Texas, and in Sunday that all shifted over into Florida. We have some scenes of some of the damage that was going on in areas of Florida around Osceola County. Boy, did they really get hit. In fact, one tornado after another tore through Osceola, Seminole, and Orange counties, as well as Volusia last night. As you can see, the damage is massive. Unfortunately, 29 people lost their lives, dozens are missing, and 55 are still unaccounted for. Scattered power outages were reported as well. We'll, of course, keep you updated on this story in areas of Florida in the aftermath of a very powerful tornadic outbreak in that immediate area. Here's what's going on for the balance of your Monday. We'll track this storm system up the eastern seaboard. What does that mean for you? If you live in Boston, looks like rain. New York City, a similar story, wind-driven rain. Philly, down to Ocean City, more rain. Looks like the snow will continue along the spine of the Appalachians on up into places like Binghamton, Altoona in Pennsylvania, Charleston, West Virginia, while the rain, wind-driven rain, tapers off in places like Athens, Georgia, and Greenville, South Carolina. More rain along the midsection of the country ahead of that front. And then this massive system will spread the rain up and down I-5, just about the entire length of California, from Chico and Red Bluff all the way back down to Stockton, Sacramento, the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, Santa Barbara, L.A., and even San Diego. Plan on some of that rain maybe even filtering into Phoenix. Meanwhile, the snows will continue in the Appalachians and the Wasatch from the east into the west. We look at the perspective tomorrow morning, more snow. I guess that little groundhog had a handle on what was going on here for 6 more weeks of winter weather, especially in places like Albany down to Scranton, extending on down into the mountainous terrain west of D.C. More wind-driven rain for Boston all the way down to Philly and New York City, and more of the rain continuing to affect places like Yuma and Phoenix that are not accustomed to a lot of rain, but this El Nino season proving otherwise. More snow in the Independence Mountains all the way up into the Wind River Range in Wyoming. Snow outlined, in fact, could be heavy in the hues of orange and purple, pink and purple. I'll get my color scheme here. Meanwhile, the greens representing the heavier rains going on as temperatures in the 80s along the Rio Grande, only in the 30s back in the Rockies and the Appalachians. Meanwhile, we'll determine that tonight, cool 40s along the Gulf Coast to the teens in Montana and over that fresh snow cover in areas of the Colorado Rockies. Of course, we'll keep you updated on the stormy weather across the country. May make an impact on perhaps your travel plans. We'll be focusing on that, as well as coming up our winter weather update. We'll give you an idea what you can expect out of the stormy weather. Will there be any more severe weather today?